Hello, Hope School family. This is Darren Wilson, Director of Online Operations at Hope School of Leadership. In today's Deep Dive podcast, we'll be talking about Designing Social Change, Section 2. We're glad you've joined us today. I think you'll enjoy the conversation. Let's listen in.
Have you ever felt that real urge, to make a difference? Maybe it's for the young people in your community or families or even right there in your church. You feel this calling almost to help to build something meaningful, but how do you actually go from that feeling, that desire, to creating something that genuinely works, something that lasts? Today, we're doing a deep dive into the inspiration phase of human-centered design. Think of it like the essential first step, the foundation really, especially if you're on that path of Christian leadership, wanting to serve your community effectively. It's about making sure your passion connects with what people actually need. Our mission today is to unpack how you can learn directly from people, really immerse yourself in their world, and open up to, creative possibilities you might not have seen otherwise. This is about making sure your ideas become the right solutions for your community, helping you create programs that truly show God's love in action.
That's exactly right. The inspiration phase, it's not just like step one. It's really the heart of the whole design process. It's all about getting this deep, profound understanding of people's actual needs. So your solutions aren't just helpful, they're genuinely transformative. You're stepping into their lives, seeing things from their perspective, really grasping their hopes, their challenges. It stops you from just assuming things, and that ensures real impact. It's the crucial base before you even think about ideation or implementation.
Okay, so it sounds foundational. If we're serious about creating programs that make a real difference, where do we even start? You mentioned choosing the challenge first.
Yes, choosing your design challenge. This is where your team, maybe it's your youth group planning team or a church committee, or even just you and a couple of friends, starts nailing down the specific problem you want to tackle.
Like, what's the biggest hurdle you're seeing? Or maybe the biggest opportunity for positive change?
Exactly. And this initial chat is super important. Sometimes teams kind of rush this part. You need to gather everyone's thoughts, sure, but then you have to refine it. Is the challenge too huge? Like, we want to help all young people. That's just overwhelming. Or is it too tiny, like fixing one broken swing? That might miss a bigger need for safe places for kids together.
Finding that sweet spot. Specific enough to act on, but broad enough to allow for creative thinking.
Precisely. And part of that is looking at what you already know as a team. Your own experiences, your insights, they matter. But and this is key, you also have to clearly define what you don't know. Embrace that beginner's mind. It's a kind of humility, really, an openness that lets you discover things you wouldn't otherwise.
Like that example you mentioned, the health team in Zambia.
Right. They spent real time reviewing their own assumptions, identifying potential barriers before they even went out to talk to people. That prep work helped them brainstorm ways around obstacles early on. It's vital.
Okay, so you've wrestled with the challenge, you've defined it. Now, how do you get the insights you need to actually solve it? That sounds like research time.
It is. This brings us to planning your research methods, the fuel for ideas. Because honestly, ideas without insight are just guesses. Research is the fuel.
The fuel for ideas, I like that.
Yeah. So this phase is about planning specific activities. How are you going to learn from people? How will you explore contexts that might be unfamiliar? We usually think about it in four main ways. Learning directly from people, learning from experts, immersing yourself in the context, and seeking analogous inspiration.
4 different angles. Sounds comprehensive.
Combining them gives you a much richer picture, definitely.
Yeah, let's break those down. Starting with A, learning from people. This sounds like the core, right? Empathy.
Absolutely the core. Human-centered design is built on this deep empathetic research. It means spending real quality time with people, not just surveying them. It's about getting insights, finding inspiration in their stories. And before you even start, you need to be clear. Who exactly are you designing for?
And thinking beyond just the main person.
Yes, think broadly. Who's directly affected? Who's indirectly involved? Like, if you're designing something for young people, what about their parents, their teachers, their community leaders? They're part of the picture too.
And you mentioned something about extreme users. That sounds intriguing.
It really is. It's often incredibly valuable to talk to people on the edges, the extremes. So for that youth mentorship program idea, you'd talk to the most motivated, engaged youth leader, sure, but also talk to the young person who feels totally disconnected, maybe even resistant.
Why talk to the extremes?
Well, a couple of reasons. First, if you can design something that works for someone with extreme needs or perspectives, it's highly likely it'll work for the mainstream folks too. But maybe more importantly, those extremes often reveal needs or ways of using something that you just wouldn't have thought of otherwise. They push your creativity.
Okay, that makes sense. So when you're planning these conversations, what are the practical things to think about?
Logistics matter. Where will you meet them? Somewhere they feel comfortable. How much time will you need? Can you maybe do an activity together, something related to your challenge that helps the conversation flow more naturally?
And how do you approach it? It can feel awkward, interviewing someone you don't know.
Approach it with genuine humility. That's crucial. Remember, you're there to learn from them. In their own life, their experience, they are the expert, not you.
So ditch the expert hat yourself.
Exactly. Build trust first. Start casually. Chat about something unrelated. Make sure they feel the conversation is private and safe. You're not there to judge or fix, just to understand.
What about finding people, especially if you're, say, a church group wanting to reach out beyond your usual circle?
Tap into personal networks, absolutely, but also just be open about what you're doing. Tell people you're learning because you want to help create positive social change in the community. That often resonates, especially if you're coming from a place of faith and service. People are often willing to share if they feel it might lead to good things.
Got it. And capturing what you learn, just taking notes.
Notes are essential, but think broader. Try to meet people in their space, their home, where they hang out, their workplace. Context tells you so much. Get direct quotes. Use their words, their language. Don't filter it through your own interpretations immediately. And pictures. Ask permission, of course, but photos can be incredibly powerful for remembering details and conveying the feeling later.
You shared that Bangkok example before, right? The domestic worker?
Yeah, the Rockefeller Foundation project. The team talked to this Burmese woman who at first said she didn't really have a support network. But because they built trust and spent time, she eventually opened up about this amazing, informal grassroots network she had with other immigrants. That insight totally changed how they thought about delivering health information. It shows how powerful those one-on-one empathetic conversations can be, a real treasure trove.
Wow, so that's learning from individuals. Hugely powerful. But sometimes you need that bigger picture, right? Like the history of an issue or how different systems interact.
Exactly. And that's where learning from experts comes into play. These aren't necessarily your end users, but people with specialized knowledge. Expert interviews give you that systems level view. They can share recent innovations, what's worked, what hasn't. They might be from NGOs, community organizations, maybe academics or local government folks.
But choosing the right expert is key.
Definitely. Think about your objective. Do you need someone with a radical, forward-thinking perspective, or someone who can give you the historical context of, say, youth programs in your specific neighborhood? And try to get a few different viewpoints, balance things out. Don't just rely on one expert's take.
Makes sense. What about just hitting the books or the internet? Does that count?
Absolutely. Secondary research, reading reports, looking at data, checking online sources is really important too. It gives you a solid foundation, helps you understand what's already been tried, what failed, what succeeded in similar areas, maybe even in other church or community initiatives. But here's the balancing act. Use experts in secondary research to get a good grip on the current reality, but don't let it box you in. You still need space to imagine completely new possibilities beyond the existing models.
Right. Don't let the way things are stop you from imagining what could be.
Exactly.
Okay, so talking to people, talking to experts, what about just watching? You mentioned immersion. Immerse yourself in context. Seeing is understanding.
Yeah, this one's powerful. Sometimes there's simply no substitute for being there, for immersing yourself in the lives and communities of the people you're trying to serve. Seeing is understanding, truly.
So how do you plan for that? Just show up somewhere.
Well, you plan experiences that will directly inform your challenge. If you're trying to improve a food pantry experience, maybe you spend time observing how people use it now, or visit a really efficient, low-cost cafeteria somewhere else. Maybe you shadow someone for a day, if they're willing.
And while you're there, what are you capturing?
Concrete details. What do you see, hear, smell even? Note down direct quotes you overhear. Try mapping out the journey someone takes through that experience. What are the steps? What seems frustrating? What's surprising? And critically, right after the observation, get together with your team and talk about it. Share those immediate impressions, feelings, unexpected moments. They fade fast.
That Tanzania cook stove example you shared really brings this to life. Spending a whole day.
Right. The team designing cleaner cook stoves, They spent an entire Saturday with the family, literally from buying the chicken at the market to cooking and eating lunch, and then seeing the stove lit again for dinner. Even with language barriers, that deep immersion gave them this incredible visceral feel for daily life. The effort involved in getting fuel, how the smoke behaved in the house, things you'd never get from just asking questions. It showed them the practical realities they had to design for.
That's deep understanding.
Okay.
Okay, one more method you mentioned, de-analogous inspiration. New perspectives. This sounds a bit more abstract.
It can feel that way at first, but it's a fantastic way to break out of conventional thinking. It's basically using associative thought. You look at your challenge, identify key activities or emotions involved, and then look for those same things in a completely different field or context.
How does that work in practice? Give me an example.
Okay, say you're designing a new online community platform for your church youth group, and you want it to build real connection. You might ask, where else do people form strong, intentional communities quickly? Maybe you look at how military boot camps do it. So the team designing an online college experience actually learned about community building by talking to a former Navy SEAL.
Wow, okay. From Navy SEALs to online college.
Exactly. Or another classic one. Designers trying to improve surgical team efficiency looked at NASCAR pit crews. The speed, the coordination, the defined roles in that high-pressure environment offered direct inspiration for streamlining operating room workflows.
So you list the core elements of your problem and then brainstorm totally unrelated areas where those elements also exist.
Precisely. List the activities, behaviors, emotions, then ask, where else can we see intense teamwork? Or managing scarce resources? Or building trust quickly? Explore those analogous situations with an open mind. Don't worry immediately about how it applies. Just soak in the different perspective. It might spark an idea later, unexpectedly.
Okay, so these 4 methods, people, experts, context, analogous, give you a really robust toolkit for gathering that fuel. But actually conducting those interviews, especially with people you don't know well, that takes skill.
It does. Which brings us to step 3, building your interview guide and research best practices. A truly good conversation, one that feels natural and yields deep insights, actually needs quite rigorous prep work.
It's not just winging it.
Definitely not. First, get crystal clear on your objectives for that specific interview or observation. What are you hoping to learn? Then, brainstorm questions. Open-ended questions. Questions that invite stories, not just facts. Think of your questions as like guide rails for the conversation, not a strict script you read off.
And how should you structure those questions? Just dive right into the deep stuff.
Usually not. A good rule of thumb is open general, then go deep. Start with easy, comfortable stuff, maybe demographics, general background. Build rapport. Then you can gently transition towards your design challenge, asking more profound questions, maybe about their hopes, their fears, what they value, how they make decisions related to your topic.
You mentioned asking people to draw things earlier.
Yeah, that can be great. Like asking young people in your church saving program example, could you draw the 5 big things you hope to save for in the next 10 years? It gets them thinking and sharing in a different way. The goal is to use open-ended phrasing. Tell me about a time when... What are the best parts about? What's the hardest part of? Can you help me understand more about? Avoid questions that lead to a simple yes or no.
What about using prompts, like physical things?
Absolutely, especially for abstract concepts. Simple sketches, maybe a really basic model, or just describing a scenario can work wonders. That Mexico Savings Program example is perfect. They showed people rough concepts, money hidden in a brick, under a pillow, in an envelope. None were real proposals. But seeing those physical things sparked much deeper reactions about how people felt about accessing their money security versus temptation, ease versus effort. It unlocked emotional insights.
That's clever. So beyond the questions themselves, what are some key best practices for actually doing the research? Things that make a real difference.
Okay, a few big ones. First, build trust. We said it before, but listen patiently. Really listen, don't interrupt. Use positive body language, eye contact, nodding. Show you're engaged.
Active listening.
Totally. Second, encourage people to show you. Don't just tell you. Ask them to walk you through something, draw it, demonstrate it. Or use that 5 whys technique, gently asking why, in response to consecutive answers to dig deeper.
Okay, what else? Logistics.
Yes, logistics and roles. Confirm your plans. If you're going as a team, have clear roles. One person leads the chat, another focuses on detailed notes, especially direct quotes. No, maybe a third takes photos, but always ask permission first. And be clear, the photos are just for your internal learning, not public use.
crucial point about permission.
Absolutely. And finally, learn to know what to look for. Pay attention to the gap between what people say and what they actually do. Notice their environment. Look for workarounds, clever ways people have already figured out how to solve a problem themselves. Those are gold mines.
We capture everything.
Capture everything. Notes, photos, sketches, what you see, hear, feel, smell. Get those direct quotes. Write down your own immediate thoughts and interpretations too, but label them as such. Don't wait, the details fade fast.
So you've done the interviews, the observations, you have pages of notes, photos. What's the very next step? Just file it away.
No, that's a huge mistake. You need to capture learnings immediately. Synthesize.
How do you do that effectively, especially if you're tired after a long day of research?
Plan for it. Build in time right after the session to regroup with your teammates. Even just 30 minutes. Share your immediate impressions while they're fresh. Ask key questions. What were the most memorable quotes or sound bites? What story stood out? What surprised you? How did the person interact with their environment in interesting ways? And importantly, what questions do we still have?
Now, you mentioned sketching.
Yeah, encourage everyone to quickly sketch any new ideas or insights that popped up during the session. Doesn't matter if they're messy. Those rough visuals are great for communicating ideas later and sparking further thought. They become part of your collective memory.
This whole process sounds incredibly thorough. Let's make it concrete.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through that Vroom example again, showing how this inspiration phase played out?
Sure. Vroom is a great case study. The challenge, remember, was tackling the lack of investment in early childhood brain development, particularly for low-income parents who often felt overwhelmed or lacked access to good advice.
A huge, important challenge.
It's massive. So the IDEO.org team launched this really immersive inspiration phase. They didn't just send surveys. They went to low-income communities in different states. They spent time interviewing parents, observing parenting programs already running.
That immersion must have been key.
It was vital. And what's interesting is that their genuine, empathetic approach built trust. It opened doors. They got beyond surface answers to understand parents' real beliefs, fears, and daily realities.
What were some of the big aha moments?
They found many parents felt, well, unequipped. They hadn't had positive engagement modeled for them growing up, so they didn't know how to play or interact in ways that boosted development. They also saw programs where nurses simply modeled playing with kids right there with the parents watching. And that visual demonstration was incredibly effective at changing parent behavior, far more than just telling them what to do.
Seeing is believing again.
Right. And expert interviews, talking to pediatricians, confirm something else. Simple things like playing, talking, responding to a child's cues, those often had a bigger impact than just reading, especially if parents weren't comfortable reading aloud themselves.
So it wasn't about adding complicated new tasks.
Not at all. But the real breakthrough, the eureka moment for the parents, came when they learned the science. Not just what to do, but why it mattered, understanding that these simple, everyday interactions were literally building their child's brain architecture. That knowledge was empowering.
And that why made all the difference.
It really did. And connecting this back, for everyone listening, especially those driven by faith to serve this deep understanding, born from the inspiration phase, led directly to Vroom. It's not a complex program. It's a large-scale messaging campaign. It provides tips and science-based info, celebrating everyday moments as learning opportunities. It helps parents use the time they already have, just differently, more intentionally, to build their kids' brains. It worked because it started with truly understanding the parents.
What a powerful example of how this process leads to solutions that are relevant and genuinely impactful. So as we wrap up this deep dive, the big takeaway seems to be that this inspiration phase isn't just some abstract design school concept. It's a really practical, deeply empathetic way, I'd even say a profoundly Christian way, to approach creating programs and initiatives that truly serve your community. Whether it's young people, families, your church members, it's about grounding that passion you feel, that call to make a difference, in the actual lived experiences of the people you want to walk alongside. It's how you make sure your efforts aren't just, well-intentioned, but truly effective and honoring to the people you serve, really listening to their stories as God calls us to do.
Exactly. And maybe that leaves you, the listener, with an important question to ponder. What surprising, perhaps unspoken need exists right there in your community, maybe within your own family or in your church, and need that's just waiting to be uncovered if you take the time to truly listen, to observe with that open heart and that beginner's mind we talked about. Just think about how that kind of deep understanding could unlock some powerful, maybe even divinely inspired solutions that could make a real difference.